Hello and welcome to the next episode of Why We Do It, the stories behind the stories in amateur sports. I hope you've all had an amazing Christmas. We are recording between Christmas and New Year, so by the time you watch this, most of you, it'll actually be a Happy New Year as well. But we're right in the window between the two. I hope you had a great Christmas. As I say, I'm wearing my Why We Do It t-shirt, which was a gift from a very close family member, and I have to wear it at least once on a podcast. And this is it. So I'm wearing my Why We Do It t-shirt. We're joined today by Innocent. Innocent, I hope you had a very nice Christmas.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Jim. And I hope you had a nice one too.
Brilliant. Absolutely. So Innocent Khumalo, he is originally from Zimbabwe. Then he moved to South Africa as a young man. He got a fascinating story. We'll talk about all of that. He's worked between South Africa and the UK for the last 10 to 15 years. And has lived in the UK for the last 5 years, now lives in Gloucester. And he has a sporting story that is going to be slightly different from some of the others we've talked about. And it's great to have you on the podcast, Innocent. So let's just crack straight into it. There's two parts to your story. There's a before and an after. And the before and after is split by a pretty significant event. We'll do the before after that. And we'll do the after as well. But let's start with the events in around early 2003 that created the big change in your sporting life.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for having me. Feb 2003, on the 6th, I actually went in for a biopsy in Johannesburg. I've always had this pain on my left foot, particularly when I'm lying down, and I went in for a biopsy, and then they picked up a tumor in my spine. And it was actually on a Thursday. I went on a Thursday, and the neurosurgeon said to me, actually, it's pretty urgent. Do you want to come and see us on Monday? Because we've picked up that you've got a growth in your spine. And I said, yeah, I mean, easily just not even says, okay, we need to do a biopsy. So didn't even seek a second opinion, just jumped straight into it. Some sort of, in retrospect, I should have, but it is what it is. Wednesday, I went under, and come the Friday afternoon, he tries to get my feet to work and they wouldn't work. 4 days later, he tells me that I'll never walk again. And unfortunately, or fortunately, this tumor that I'd got, was something that I had since as a child. So there was no need for them to do any biopsy, but there was no other way to know whether it was malignant or not. So that then left me wheelchair bound. And since then, 2003 to date, I haven't walked yet. So that's the significant life. I was 32 years old at that particular time. So it is a massive, massive change in terms of my life.
Now, okay. Now, as we are going to hear, you played a lot of sport, and when you were younger, before that, and then that's carried on since. But your tumor, was that related? So you said that was when you had that since birth or since you were very young.
Well,
it's not related to sporting injury, because I had
no. So it's two parts. So I had a tumor, but what had happened, what sent me to the doctor was I had a broken rib from rugby, actually, and that's what had sent me to the doctor. But then they picked up the tumor at the same time. So what actually sent me to go and do the biopsy, besides all the other stuff, was the fact that I had a broken rib from the rugby game that we played the week before. And then they picked up the tumor, and then they did the biopsy. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned something about it before when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, when I asked you to come on the podcast about your lung. You had did you have an issue with your lung as well?
Just two clots. So the one clot, so the what actually put me in a wheelchair was not the tumor, was the two clots. I had one clot that was in my lungs that made me collapse, and then I had one in my spine, which is the one that put pressure on my spine and then left me paralyzed, of course. But if they hadn't dissolved the one in my lungs, that would have taken me out, Jim. I mean, that's where I say God has a plan for me. So that's why I'm here with you today. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone has a story, and you certainly have a story. Wow, and the good news is your story is ongoing when it could have been very different back then. So the two things, I hope you don't mind. I'm a little bit confused. There was the broken rib and the tumor, and then the clot. Which ones came first, or did it all happen at the same time? Did you discover all this at the same time?
Yeah, just discovered it at the same time, but the tumor was always there since I was a child.
Right. Okay.
So, but what took me to hospital was a broken rib.
Right.
Yeah, I
And then
had
the
a
blood
hospital
clots.
pass. I got a hospital pass during one of these fun games, and I got knocked out by a big lad, and then it broke my rib. That's what took me to hospital. But they
Right.
did scans while I was in hospital, and they picked up this tumor.
Right. Okay. And is it the tumor that caused your paralysis then, or the blood
No,
clot
it was a blood clot that got my paralysis
in
going.
the same procedure at the same
In
time?
the same procedure.
Right.
So
Okay.
whether the blood clot was from the rugby injury or from the tumor, we would never know. But I had two
Right. I
clots.
see. I
Yeah.
see. Okay. And so from playing rugby, getting a minor injury, relatively speaking, I mean, a broken ribs is in rugby terms is reasonably
It's
standard.
normal. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then you're going into hospital. You're walking in, got a broken rib, and then between that and you getting this news that you're not going to walk again, how long was that? Did you say was that 5 days or something?
Oh, well, literally 5 days. I remember the day vividly. So it was before the August. I think it's around about the August is the cycle tripping that happens in Cape Town every year
Yeah.
yearly. I think
Yeah.
and my neurosurgeon was a cyclist or is a cyclist. He came through on the 6th of February around about 6 p.m. in my room in hospital, and he said to me, I have I've got some news to tell you, mate. We have done everything. Unfortunately, you'll never be able to walk again. Like in shock, literally. And what I do remember, the first question I asked him when he said that was, am I able to use crutches? He said to me, absolutely, you can. If you brace your feet, you might be able to, but it's not an easy because you're carrying dead weight. And that moment, Jim, is actually, I think, was more like a turning point in what ends up where I am today, in the sense that I held on to that. That became the picture I started having of me walking around in crutches. Um, and from there onwards, it became my focus. I stopped feeling, I
Okay.
didn't even have the chance to feel sorry for myself, which I think was some sort of, divine intervention, because I
Yeah.
think I was
Yeah.
supposed to be miserable at that particular time, but I wasn't. I literally had a different picture to my current reality, and that stuck, and that kept me going.
Brilliant. Well, we'll probably hear about that as we get into the broader story. This picture here, you said before, this picture's very soon after this all happened. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So this is a picture where I we were actually at a little kids that were playing rugby, so they knew me that I used to play rugby, and I was giving a talk to these kids about the power of sports, and you know that it's not just winning and losing, but and on the field, but it also helps with mental capacity, strength, resilience. So I was just motivating them that look at me. I used to do all sorts of these beautiful things, but look at now I'm in a chair, but my life goes on. So it was one of those events that helped me heal, because the more I spoke about it, the more I felt better.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. And massive credit to you that you had that let's go get him attitude. And you talk about not feeling sorry for yourself or not having even time to feel sorry for yourself. It was like, right, what am I going to do now? And you're immediately doing things like doing chats with kids and sport and giving yourself new goals. I wanted to just do that story very quickly at the beginning before we do what we normally do, because we normally ask folks just very lightheartedly if you could be sponsored by anyone, who would it be? You've chosen two sponsors, one before and one after these events. So We'll put up the first sponsor you picked. You went for Land Rover, this is your before sponsor. So what's the
Yes,
story there?
durability, mate. It's just
Durability.
I know everybody who is a Toyota fan is probably talking, what are you talking about? But I'm telling you, a Landy, if you look at Land Rover since the 70s until, before they started introducing all these buttons, we were the 4x4 of choice,
The four by
until the
four.
buttons started coming by, and then, it's questionable now. But I think Landy for me is a brand that I associate with durability. It's I know you've got a grin on your face because you're thinking, what are you talking about?
No,
But that's
I
the
think it's
fact.
brilliant. Good for you. Good for you. But I do like the fact that you've mentioned that it's been ruined by too many buttons. Because if we jump to your sponsor for after your injury, you put this up as your sponsor afterwards. Now here's another organization that doesn't do many buttons. It does touchscreens. So what's the story with Apple being your sponsor after 2003?
I think for me, this guy is the use of technology to improve accessibility. Just democratizes environment. So in other words, healthcare, access, GPS. With an airport technology, if I'm in my wheelchair, I'm able to utilize any of the tech. But at the same time, I'm also able to check my health out, my heart rate, because those things start mattering for me. That's the one part. The other part is the owner, the guy that started the business. His mindset for me resembles, my experience after 2003,
Right. Okay.
where you obstacles are there to be met and not to be run away from. It's like there's that analogy around buffaloes. That both buffaloes and cows, they can sense a storm coming. What do buffaloes do? Buffaloes run to the storm,
All
through
right.
it, and
Yeah.
and cows run away from the storm.
Okay.
So I'm more the guy that runs to the storm and deal with it and then move on. And while cows are running away, and you get tired along the way. So I think that's where I found, this chap from Apple, may he rest in peace, being one of those tenacious guys who determined and who knew what he wanted.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting because one of the things that comes up in the "why we do it" theme of this podcast repeatedly is the idea of overcoming a challenge. I don't know if you've seen the previous episode with Helena. She's in her 80s. She ran the London Marathon. Going to do it again next year. She talked about life's all about having a challenge and overcoming a challenge and setting yourself a challenge, and what's the point if there isn't a challenge to overcome. And I think as human beings, we're wired to do that. If you go back thousands of years, our whole existence was about overcoming challenges for survival reasons. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about kind of engaging and seeking out the challenges to overcome. And we're going to hear a bunch of that from your story as we go. But let's go back to Zimbabwe. You were born in Zimbabwe, and tell us about your early years in Zimbabwe and your sporting experiences there.
Yeah, so although my friends laugh at me when I say this, I always say I'm a rural boy, because every single holiday, my dad used to take us to my grandmother in the rural area, and I love it. And I think I told you in another conversation that I wouldn't go anywhere else with Mutara without going to the rural areas. So, born in 71, I think just before Zimbabwe's independence was 1980. So we were the first bunch of people that kind of went into the mixed schools where all schools were amalgamated. So I think I was in grade 2 at that particular time. So you can imagine coming from the townships and now you're going into the schools with, all the mixed schools, new sports. That's when I got introduced to cricket and I excelled like crazy. I got introduced to rugby at that time, also excelled like crazy. Um, so you played first team cricket when I was, grade 5. is when I started playing first team cricket. Yeah. And rugby, I was in grade 6. I was already in the first team. That's a primary school. And then, of course, I started getting caught up in this new culture that I had just adopted, and my dad realized I'm losing my son here. He's no longer as black as I thought he was. And then he moved me to a mission school. It's called
Right.
Hudson High School, which was a game changer for me. And at that school, we had the two major sports that, spoke to me. There were all sorts of sports, but it was really either you're playing football or you're playing basketball. And then I played basketball, which also was another game changer for me because I made first team there as well. Ended up playing for the Manicaland provincial team. So all the schools, they would pick the top players. I was in there. So the sporting part, also those wins and the losses, and I'll tell you about it when we go to the other side of my life, is just the amount of losses and wins we used to take as youngsters in sport. It was painful in the moment, but we didn't realize the capacity or the resilience it's building in our subconscious. Which is why I always encourage parents that please push your kids to do some sort of sport.
That's a really fascinating point you make. I've been reading about some of this recently, and the buildup of resilience from the hard sides of sport, which is not only the physical hardship but also the kind of winning and losing element is starting to come back in conversations around the whole last 20-year agenda of everyone gets a medal, everyone wins, there should be no losers. We don't want people to be upset about losing as kids. And it's really interesting and that's now been starting to become really criticized as failing to develop resilience. So it's fascinating you bring that up as something you remember from being a young kid.
Yeah, well, in fact, I am sitting here predominantly because of those experiences, and in me the mindset itself. So, lower 6, my family moved.
So
my
let's
dad
just throw
moved.
let's throw this picture up quickly before we move on. So this will be at your high school.
This is
By
now
looking
where
at
I'm
the
getting
age.
to. This picture is now getting relevant now, where I'm getting into.
Okay.
So I then moved from, Manicaland and moved to Mashonaland, which is Harare. From Mutare to Harare, that's where I did my lower and upper 6. This is now me in I was in lower 6, which is Form 5, I think, at a school called Cranbourne. And these are my two mates that are actually, one is in Australia, the one on the left side, and the other one is actually here, Nathan
UK.
and Maxwell. So
Look
this
at you,
was the
yeah.
first.
Look at a fine, strapping, handsome young lad there in the middle. Your hands in your pockets, as confident as anything.
Yeah, I was the basketball captain here, man. And this is the year I also made the Mashonaland squad. So, again, similar to what we did in Manicaland, which was a bit smaller, the competition in Harare was insane. There were more top schools there were more players, but I managed to make, the provincial team as one of the point guards, the playmakers. So they had packed rugby already because of the 4 years at Hadsel High School and then there's 2 years at Cranbourne. I didn't have that passion for rugby that much anymore because I had so much experience in basketball and had a name for myself. And also it clashed. Rugby and cricket and basketball were during the same semester, so I couldn't. You had to choose one.
Yeah.
And then I think after this, I had my first year in uni, and then not uni. I actually went to PwC. I went into an audit firm because we wanted to do articles. I'd always been dreamt becoming a chartered accountant. So the old man hooked me up with a company called Coopers and Lybrand. I think it turned into Ernst and Young, I think, eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we leave school, just one quick thing I wouldn't mind talking about. You and I have talked about this before offline a few weeks ago. Obviously, we're about the same age. I think it's about a year or so
Yes.
between us. I
Yes.
grew up in South Africa itself. This education system there was fully segregated. You were in Zimbabwe. You referred to it already, that the combined schools, the mixed race schools, kind of happened earlier in Zimbabwe than it did in South Africa. What was that like? It sounded like from what you said that you were actually already in primary school when that change was coming in. What was it like, kind of, with the integration of schools, just when you were at schools all starting to come together?
Oh, the initial part was a complete culture shock. Um, it's two different worlds. So I'm a township boy who was playing the only predominant sport I knew was soccer or football or netball.
Mhm.
That was it. Um, we had when we go to school, you'd eat in the morning and then you eat when you get back at lunch when you get back from school. And then you go into these integrated schools where they have got you needed to start bringing in lunch boxes with food for to eat at 10 o'clock. They played marbles, they played cricket. There was a piano, there was all these things I didn't know of at all. Never heard of them.
Wow.
We didn't even read them in our books. So, because I mean, look, I was in grade two when I went to Chancellor Primary School. So these were completely brand new things because it was a really segregated community. There were whites only areas and the black only areas. So
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
first time you get these kids together, and the maturity as a child, as it goes, obviously you start thinking this is better than my life, and we wanted to assimilate so much as kids. And then we started putting pressure on our parents. I don't have this, you know, I need proper whites. I need to get the right, rugby shoes. But our parents, remember, it was just integration of schools, but it wasn't integration of work. The earnings of our
Yeah, yeah,
parents
yeah.
were still very limited. It's only the schools that were in. So you start putting unnecessary pressure on the kids. And by the way, this is only in retrospect. Then it didn't. That's the one part. The other part was I felt like we were stronger than we were more tenacious. We were not spoon fed. I was harder, so you tackle me, I'm gonna come for you. There was no crying in my world, kind of thing. So that's what I think made me and some of the other boys that had just joined as well made into the first team very quickly, succeeded very quickly because we were coming from different backgrounds, you know, built on hardship, making
It's
it
back
work
to that.
with the literature that you have, and then you've got all these things, and then you start succeeding very quickly.
It's back to that resilience point, isn't it?
It is back to that
Being
resilience
able
thing,
to
yeah.
deal with the kind of hardships. And briefly, was your white colleagues at school, the other pupils, how did they? What's your impression of how they handled it all? Because I seem to remember about that time, a lot of white families left Zimbabwe and came down to South Africa. We were both very young at that time, so I don't really remember that very clearly. But what's your memory of how they managed to kind of cope or kind of adjust to that cultural changes that were happening?
I think it was more curiosity than anything else. Because they were kids like us, they were equally just as curious. You know how innocent kids
Right.
are, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
there
yeah.
wasn't they didn't carry any baggage. It's like, all my friends in the second term, I think, were all white. We
Right,
started
right.
sleeping at each other's houses. So I think the curiosity was there. And also there was the openness of the parents to realize that, okay, we are going to stay. So I think there was an element of acceptance of this integration at that level. But
Yeah,
at all the economic levels, I don't think that integration had happened equally or quick
yeah.
enough, should I say,
It's going
which
to be a
then
long time.
impact.
Yeah,
It took a little
yeah, yeah.
longer than that. So I remember, uh, in fact, my cricket teacher is here. He's still alive. Can you believe it? It's John Winter. He's still here in England. Um, I remember him, it was me and a couple of other lads, I think there were three of us, spending more time with us you know, in the nets, just showing us the basics that we would
Helping
not
you
have
guys to catch
had
up. Yeah,
to
yeah,
catch up.
yeah, yeah.
That for me was just, John was like possibly one of those guys that made me feel like, you know what, this is actually good. There wasn't
This is going to
any,
work.
and we
Yeah,
didn't feel it at all as kids.
yeah, brilliant. Okay, so you're then you're going to kind of job opportunities, getting into accountancy kind of consultancy
Yes.
firms.
So,
That's where you
so
were.
I had
Pick us
two
up from
choices.
there, and then you moved to South Africa. Yeah,
Yeah, I had two choices. The one was to go to uni. The University of Zimbabwe is highly, competitive because it was the only uni then in the whole country. So, and I decided, and I also wanted to be a chartered accountant. So I got hooked up with to go and do my articles at Coopers and Labyrinth with a couple of mates. I did that for 6 months. It was a complete nightmare for me. Complete. I hated it with every single passion. Didn't like it at all. And then skipped. I went to what was called the Tobacco Sales Floor (TSF). I don't know if you remember it at all. Because
not
Zimbabwe
really.
then
Yeah.
was the biggest producer of tobacco at one stage in the world,
All right. Okay.
and what. But all the rugby players would go there. So all the schoolboy rugby players after school, it was like you had the first old Hararian boys and old Georgian boys all at that school. So it was more fun. I was there for about maybe about 8 months or so. And
Did
then
you
I
say that was
think,
a tobacco company?
yeah, tobacco sales. Yeah, just a tobacco company.
Interesting that a tobacco company is the place for all these sports players to go. Times have changed.
Yeah,
Times have changed. Eh? Yeah,
times have changed.
yeah.
Around about 90, 90, my dad passed away in 94. And it was also like the turning point of my life, firstborn in
Wow.
the family of 9.
Mhm.
Um, and we're still very dependent on him on a lot of things. And then, of course, decided to then make the move to South Africa, more as an economic migrant than anything else. But it was through the company. I was working for a company called ICL then, and they
Right.
had a branch in South Africa. So it was more like an intercompany change. Then I moved to ICL, and that became my life in South Africa. When I joined because I was in Joburg, my preferred club obviously was the Lions. You saw
So
me
you were
holding
you were
the
in
rugby
your you were
ball.
in your early 20s at this point when you moved to
Yeah,
Johannesburg.
I would say late 20s then, 1994. So yeah, you're right, mid 20s there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I went into South Africa in 1997 for a year. Uh, Enjoyed it a lot. Went back to Zim for 6 months, and then went back to South Africa again, 1998 full time.
All right. So you were
Um,
backwards and forwards for a while with ICL, and
for
then
a while, and then I
yeah,
then went back, similar to what I did in England actually, uh,
yeah,
and going back to sport.
yeah.
So I thought I could go back and do this rugby thing again because
So you
South
were a
Africa did.
basketball player at high school.
Yes,
You played a bit of rugby, I guess, but now you're switching back to rugby now that you're in
I'm
Johannesburg.
switching back to rugby. I thought I
Yeah,
could wing it because that's what it was. And then I
yeah.
got into South Africa. When I see these South African boys, this 15-year-old boy who's got the size of a calf like a cow. And I'm thinking, there's no freaking way. There's no way I'm playing with these boys. So the 6 months I had at the Lions, these are like 18, 19-year-old boys. Like I'm thinking, the size in these boys are
So this is
so big.
you said that very quickly. This is the Lions team, which
The
used to be
Lions, yeah,
called Transvaal originally, and
Transvaal,
then
yeah.
now they're called the Lions. Yeah, the white shirts with the red stripe.
The red shirt with the, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I
So
should have
how
showed.
did you get involved? How did you get involved? Then how did you end up getting into being part of that whole setup?
I had a couple of friends, Zim friends that played in Zimbabwe that were playing for the Lions that I knew. And they invited me because they knew I had a good boot and I could run. and they thought I could, I got there, I think I was 24, 25, I think, yeah. And what's his name? Fisser. I was a captain in that particular, Andre Fisser was our captain, and, Bola, we got onto the pitch for one practice session. I think I lasted 6 months, mate. I said, there's no way I'm going to play rugby, because the level of rugby they were playing and the level of rugby that I thought I knew, two different things. So I just became part of the team, supported the team from a practice perspective, but not really hoping to play, to make the team.
And what position were you playing all over the place?
When I initially it was fullback.
Right.
Initially it was fullback, but I'd also got a bit bigger. And then I started moving into the line. I became a 8th man at one stage because I was very mobile, mobile and big. And I always liked contact. You see, I was that guy who, as I said, a buffalo that goes into the storm kind of guy. I thrived on that.
So you get to spend 6 months in the kind of overall squad. I mean, that's an amazing thing to get into that squad. You don't just walk into that. They must have checked you out and given you some kind of trials and tests, and you became part of the overall squad.
Let's be honest. When the trials, if you ask me whether I played a game against the Bulls in that, I never did. I never got there. I know I never, but was
still in the overall squad and the overall training team.
I was part of the overall squad. I was part of the. So you know what Rassi does now? This thing of having a practice squad.
Yeah. You were part of the big squad. Yeah.
I was part of the big squad.
But I mean, they don't just invite anyone to come in and be part of the big squad. You've got to know you've got to be fairly capable to be part of that. So that's
I knew my basics.
Yeah,
I knew my
basics. You could run and you could kick and you were mobile.
I knew my basics. I had the tenacity. I had the rugby brain was still there. And I spoke too much. So I was also quite one of those guys who had good peripheral vision. The way that what's his name? This youngster, our fullback now, 100th test.
Oh, you put me on the spot, man. I know exactly what you mean. And
Vili.
I have to edit this.
Willie
Leroux.
Yeah.
Willie Leroux.
Yeah, Vili. Yeah. So if you look at Vili now, I was that guy, because if you take the playmaking in basketball and you look at the role of a fullback in rugby, it's almost similar, because you are the one that kind of has visibility of the field, and you talk much, you direct a lot, which is kind of the role of a fullback, besides being the last line of defense.
Yeah. So after the injury and after the terrible news that you're not going to walk again, I'm just going to bring this picture up as we transition into the next phase. So what was those first few weeks and months like? You talked about not having time to feel sorry for yourself. You were immediately resetting goals and objectives, and the idea of crutches and things like that. But what was that first few months like to get used to and to adjust and to get your head around everything that happened to you?
I think I was on a high. I think from the conversation I had with Dr. Van der Hef, I even remember his name. Initially, although we spoke about me being on crutches, I think I was on some sort of high of some sort, and I did not allow myself to feel. I found, when my family came to see me when I was in hospital and I would share the news with them, I found myself comforting them, because they were all crying. All my mates were crying. To tell them, no, it's going to be all right. I have a plan. But I almost feel like at that time, it wasn't really me speaking. I wasn't really sure what, and I was still in a very safe environment in hospital. So I was still kind of finding my feet, literally, which were gone. And then I got discharged. I went into rehab for about 8 weeks, 2 months or so into rehab. I think that's where the reality hits, because now you start realizing you have to worry about your bowel system. You have to worry about your bladder system. You have to worry about how you bath. Because I'm a paraplegic, so those things, your muscles are not as strong as they are. If I drink too many bottles of water and there's no bathroom close by, you're going to leak. So that became the reality. And that reality is where you start realize, okay,
And
things are a bit different.
I did a little bit of reading on paraplegia before this. Can you feel anything in your legs? Do you have sensation in your legs? I mean, if you pinch it,
No,
can you feel that?
no,
You feel nothing.
no sensation. No sensation to the extent, Jim, that I have burnt myself numerous times with hot water,
And not knowing.
and not feel it. So I've got scars on my legs right now because I was trying to shower, and then you don't realize that the hot water is dripping on your leg, and the next thing you're trying to dress up to go to work, and you've got this big blister, because you bent yourself. That's In other words, I've got zero feeling, to answer your question.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. Okay. So you're a few months down, that you're going into rehab. All of these things
Yeah.
are starting to become part of reality, and adjustments that you're starting to realize you need to make. And then from a sporting perspective, you'd had the goals or the crutches from the very beginning. At what point did you start thinking, right, I'm actually going to be doing something physical here? I'm going to try and get back into something.
There's an important part, which I think, even when you look at it from a sport perspective, which I think I would like to share straight from rehab. One of the things that happened was my employer. I was working for a company called IOCO then, also a British company. When I moved back from rehab, I didn't get it. They converted the whole building for me.
Jeez.
Literally converted the whole building, ramps, bathrooms, even the office space. They converted everything to accommodate me. So, when I rolled back into the building, because everybody knew me as innocent, that loved rugby, played cricket. In fact, the chairman of that company, we used to support the Highfield Strikers, which is a cricket team based in Johannesburg. So we used to go and play fun cricket there as well. But now this is just like corporate events, and he used to pull me over. So when he heard about my situation, he took it upon himself to make sure that first he sent me the right therapist. He created changes, paid they paid a lot of money to adjust the building, and that again made me feel okay, because I didn't have to spend so much time by myself feeling sorry for myself. Now, the angle here is how I got connected to my chairman and all the leaders was through sport, because they loved sport too. So there was a personal relationship built between me and them, to the extent that they're willing to do this for me. Might be wrong, but there were a lot of people that we're a company of about 300 people. I can tell you there are a lot of people that went ill, not necessarily cut back in wheelchairs, but the chairman didn't know about them.
Yep.
There was, because of that sports connection, it carries on in your life, whether it's at work, whether it's with your kids, it just carries on. Look at me and you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So in this, go on. Sorry, I'll pull that up in a second.
And by the way, that picture you just shown.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is you coaching, isn't it?
This is for myself, but this is the rugby field. This is the one in Rangburg. This is where I got injured.
Wow.
This
so you're
particular
back
rugby
at
field.
this field, and we spoke before. This is you coaching, is that correct?
This
coaching
is me
kids?
coaching my son. My son, who was playing. I should have sent you a couple of clips of him.
This is me coaching in a second. We'll put him up in a second.
Yeah, go on. No, I've actually got one proper picture when he was now at Kingswood College, when he was playing fly half for Kingswood College. Wow. Yeah, so this is
years
a
later.
picture of me with my son. I was coaching him, just kicking to posts
Right.
on this particular field where I had my injury.
Where you got that first kind of rib injury. And then
Yes.
how old was your son when your injury happened? Was it, I know you got a
Oh
younger
gosh,
daughter.
he was very young. So two,
2003.
2003, he was 2 years old when I
Right,
got
okay.
injured.
So he
Yeah.
probably doesn't remember too much about you before
Now,
your injury.
he doesn't know anything about my injury because remember, I was 2003 is
Yeah.
when my injury, he was born 2005.
Oh, sorry. Okay, the other way around. So 2 years
Yeah, yeah,
after. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, 2 years
Uh,
after.
I thought it was 2 years before.
So
So this is you. This is you with him, and you're not letting anything get in the way of kind of showing him the ropes for some basketball activities.
yes, yes. So this is across the field. So the other field you saw there was a different day when we were doing rugby. We used to come here. There were also basketball courts. So we used to come here and play basketball as well with him. So
Right.
I started
Okay.
introducing him to sport at a very young stage as well.
Okay. And then I'm quite interested in this picture here, where you're. This is 2008. It's got stamped on there.
Yes,
So
this,
so you're
yeah,
into
this
a
is
variety of different activities, and being out in the middle of nowhere is no obstacle.
this again. This was for me was the test of resilience. We went. It's called in South Africa. There's an in the winter season. It's called a McNab, where you fly fish, you shoot a buck, you I mean, you also go after birds. I couldn't do that because you have to actually go with hunting dogs, and it was not
Right.
practical
Right.
for me.
Yeah.
So this was me in an area called Dahlstrom, fly fishing, and
Ostrom.
that guy was teaching me how to fly fish because I'd never done that before. And by the way,
Right.
prior to my injury, you would never catch me fly fishing. This is what I would call a white man's sport, right?
A white man's.
You would never see me fly fish, but now look at me sitting there for hours trying to catch fish and taking it back in. I would catch a fish and not eat it. Here I had to put it back in.
You have to throw it back in. It's a very small pond. You can't take all the fish out of that. You got to let someone else have a shot at catching them.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
multiple ponds actually. They had about 5 ponds on this farm.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the lines, the idea of hand cycling came in. Is that what it's called? Hand cycling?
Yeah. So let me tell you what triggered it. It's my bunch of friends and I went to a Chisanyama. Remember what Chisanyama is? A braai, right? Where we used to go
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
braai,
Yeah.
someplace in Soweto.
Right.
And I saw these kids playing around. The one kid was being pushed in a wheelbarrow. And I thought, fine, we used to do that, push out in wheelbarrow. And I then realized later on that this kid was being pushed in a wheelbarrow because he's disabled and he doesn't have a wheelchair.
Right. Okay.
So he was to play with other kids, would put him in a wheelbarrow and push him around, get him out, that kind of thing. And it just touched me so much. I realized, okay, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to be able to have a wheelchair, to be able to move around, to be able to drive. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do something for this kid. I'm going to get him a wheelchair, but how to do it? I figured I must do some extreme sport of some sort. So fundraise for him. So I went to my
Right.
company. I said to them, guys, this is what I saw. I was already kind of senior guy in the company already, so it was easy for me to convince my MD. So this is what I saw. This is what I would like to do. I would like to do. I want us to get bikes for the guys that want to cycle and do the 94.7 cycle challenge. Now, but I do not want cyclists. I want to be the weakest link. I also want people that have only just learned how to cycle. So we're not looking for professionals. So I was coming called SAS then. Yeah, this is actually the second bunch. We got about 10 bikes, and me being the weakest link, and we registered for the 94.2 cycle challenge, and we asked for donations. We said for every K we ride, people donate money, and then whatever amount we raise, the company matches it.
Wow.
And that's how and then we bought this bike. I'd never been on a bike in my life before. So this was the first time, but prior to this, of course, I had to go to gym, crazy gym to exercise because I had to do this for 94.7 kilometers with my
Yeah, and
hands
I saw in
around
another picture
Joburg.
that I saw another picture that I don't have up here. You sent me a results tab, and it said just over 5 hours to do the 94 kilometers. So
Yes, yeah, it
yeah,
took us
that's
5 hours.
yeah. Is it a very hilly route, that 94.7? It's a
Oh,
standard route that happens all the time. Yeah,
no, mate. I'm laughing because everybody says, no, it's flat. Like when you are this low on the ground, there's nothing
yeah.
called flat.
There's
Everything is
nothing.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
there's some downhills, but there are also some quite nasty slopes.
It's a good thing that you had
So
moved from fullback to eight man at the Lions. So you had that, you built up the upper body kind of strength now that you're on your way to giving yourself a bit of kind of oomph in the arms to do this.
I built up a bit of strength, and I'd also changed the my hand cycle. To from because you needed the upper body to do this. You kind of have to use your whole top to grind
Yeah.
as opposed to just using your arms.
Right.
So
So
we managed to raise some good money from this, and we bought about 10 wheelchairs,
brilliant.
ultimately for this kid. And that's when the bug bit, and then from there onwards, I think after this, we did about two more 94, three more 94.4, actually, four more 94.7. But the fourth one, we'd started something else. I'd then moved to a different company now.
Right.
And I convinced the lot that you're seeing now here. This was in preparation for the Joburg Durban ride.
The Joburg to
So we
Durban. So
said, okay,
we're gonna be finishing the story with all that. But I've got to ask you very quickly. I see there's a logo on the side of that. It's called Quickie, and it was also a logo on another wheelchair and another picture. You didn't choose Quickie to be your sponsor at the beginning of this.
I didn't. Interestingly, it's just it's just a brand of chairs I used to just buy.
Right.
I
Okay.
hadn't even noticed. Actually, come to think of it, Quickie should have been my preferred, uh, because
That's all
I've
right. We
been
can add
buying
it.
their
We can add
products
it now as a third sponsor. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah. So now you've done four of these with two different companies, and now you're going to go for a 7-day ride from Johannesburg to Durban. That's all downhill as well, isn't it? From high up in the highlands to down to the coast, straight downhill. Just gonna cruise the whole way, surely.
Jim, I'm laughing at you because uh, yeah, it is. Yeah,
So tell us
for
about that.
professional cyclists like you, yes.
Tell us about the Johannesburg Durban kind of
Yeah,
seven
so
day.
yeah, that one was so we did a lot of spinathons at office raising money. We did 194 final ride was a 94.7 as a practice run. That was my fourth one. And then I had a bunch of about 15 people, 12 people cycling with me. And I was the only one on the hand cycle. And I think day one, we decided we'll do 70 kilometers,
Right.
which is just from Joburg to Vereeniging, I think. And that was fun. There was still a little hype there.
Yeah.
People chatting away, and we had a whole lot of cars behind us cheering us on. And then, of course, we would get a lodge, stay at a lodge, a whole lot of us, make some booty rolls and just have a jolt the night, have a couple of dopes as well while we're at it. Second night, I think the second day was about 97 kilometers that we needed. I don't remember the small town we were going into. And we couldn't use the freeway because it's illegal to cycle on the freeway. So we had to
Yeah.
use the back route. So our entire route ended up
And I
being
have to
700.
pause your story there because I've only got three more pictures, but this looks like a freeway. What's going on here? This is this
No,
the
this is 94. This is 94.7.
this is 94.7 in Johannesburg, right? Okay, so this is
This is
not part
this
of
is
that.
Johannesburg. This is
So,
N1.
This looks like the road's closed for the event. Is that what's going on here? They've closed the whole motorway.
Yeah, they closed the whole motorway for the
All right.
94.7 cycle challenge. This is the separate one. This is the
All right.
one where we were preparing for the fourth one, actually, where we were preparing for that cycle.
I saved this picture because I was sure this was the motorway near Durban, which is part of the Comrades Marathon. I thought I recognized it, but obviously I was completely wrong. So
No,
yeah,
this is
I'll
this is
drop
this
that
is
out.
this is Joburg.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so because we had to use the back routes,
Yeah.
instead of the typical 500, Ks from Joburg to Durban, we ended up doing 725 Ks because of the back routes.
Yeah.
So
on average, it's over 100 kilometers a day.
Yeah, but we wouldn't do. Yeah, so we would pace ourselves. The longest day we did was I think 120 Ks.
Yeah.
That's the longest we did. And when we got to Harry Smith, just right by the halfway mark, I'd snapped my shoulder.
What does that mean? Snapped your shoulder?
Like when I say what is it? I had kind of dislocated my shoulder going uphill. Yeah, the right shoulder, and we were not sure that we were going to make it. And a good friend of mine, because we're two physios with us as well, because we're all organized, but not your dislocation of like my arm dangling, but where I had fallen off my bike.
Right, you fell off,
and literally it was swollen like this.
Wow. And
we got to Harry Smith, and we were now questioning, because shall we stop here? Can the other guys can continue? I just said, let me sleep on it. Had lots of physio the night before. We were supposed to start. We always started at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, there's no way I'm stopping, because I could still move my hands.
All right.
It was just painful. And they put those patches, those straps, those nice, I had those patches. My shoulder was like this. Those tape,
yeah.
Taped it up, and I had an ice pack, and I said, we're not stopping. Which then brings me, trying to mirror this to our earlier conversation around in sports, you don't stop until the final whistle, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what happens, you don't stop. So we cracked on, and we made it. We made it.
Incredible.
And there's a picture I sent you with me
and the beach.
No, there's one before that. There's where we were holding each other, literally crying tears, crying tears, because I think the pain and the fact that we'd finished it, like, it was so super emotional. I mean, all those guys, I'm still, most of them I'm still in contact with right now as you speak. We built a bond in those 7 days.
I'm really sorry I don't have that picture. It's on another kind of folder, but I do have this. This is that team. So this is obviously, you've got to Durban, and we haven't talked about this, but I'm assuming from this picture and the next picture that they all felt that it wasn't over until you actually hit the sea. So
exactly.
I guess what's happening here is that they're taking you down to the water.
Yes, you got it right. So here is they say there's no way, we are all going. And they had built so many crowds, because as we got into Durban, some of the family members, they told their family members, and they told their family members. So we now had this queue of people cheering us on, which is really nice. And if you look at the back there, you would see that we had a whole maybe 40, 50 people behind there that you probably can't see properly, but we had a little crowd.
Yeah.
And they got me and they pulled me and they got me into the sea, which is absolutely brilliant.
And they did get you in the sea, because here you are in the sea.
There's me in the sea, man.
You've gone from Joburg all the way down to Durbs by the sea, and you got in the actual sea as part of the final thing.
And the fun thing is, what we then realized is, the more we it was like we went to gym every single day, so we never really got tired, because we stopped around 3, 4, we rested, ate, got some massages, and in the morning you start again. So it almost felt like someone who's going to an intensive gym session for 7 days. That's how we treated it. And there's no way you can train your hands or your body to cycle for 725 because it was all mental. It was all in the mind. You need, even after my issue with my shoulder, it was all in the head. I needed to, we kind of started putting a picture of why are we doing what we're doing now. It's a fundraise for who? What happens if we don't do it? And then that kind of drives us to keep going.
So again, there's another theme that's come through in earlier podcasts, the idea of fundraising as a motivator to keep going in sport. And here it is for you. You're the one effectively in the wheelchair, but this is about you fundraising for other people. And that's absolutely amazing. That's a bit of the story I didn't know before we came on and did this. We're almost out of time, Innocent, but I'm going to pop this last picture up because here's you recently on your 50th birthday.
Yes.
Who's that in the background?
That's my wife.
Brilliant. Support team.
Celebrating
your
yes.
50th. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my 50th birthday.
So what about now on? Have you got any other sports activities? I know you're a massive South African rugby team fan. You and I have talked about that a few times and celebrated how amazingly well the South African rugby team is doing at the moment, and our joint hero Rassie, along with millions of others in South Africa who also think he's amazing. So any other plans? Anything else brewing?
Definitely something brewing that's started brewing actually 2 weeks ago is the London Marathon. Yeah.
Oh wow.
London Marathon. Yeah. We doing the London Marathon, mate. Without a question in my mind, I'm doing the London Marathon.
So is that going to be this next year or a couple of years away? What's the plan?
No. So I need 3 months intensive training. Right. This is I want to do it. So we spoke with some of the guys at the office there because I always like to pull. Sometimes you get energy from people you're working with, right? So if you've got the enthusiasm around you, it drives you into the gym, it drives you to train, it drives you to do the right things, eat right in prep for this. So I've got some guys at the office looking to register for a charity, and we're now looking for a proper cause, because that way we can almost get guaranteed to get to sport, because it's difficult to get into London Marathon. But the guys will be running this time. I'm going to be on my hands up.
Right. Okay. And is that something you've done in the UK? You haven't got the kit. You got to get the kit yet, because
I've got nothing at the moment.
In the UK? Yeah.
I've got absolutely nothing. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Innocent, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. We're going to have to get you on for another. Occasionally we do a 10-minute one with a follow-up when people have gone on to do another event. So once you've done the London Marathon, we're going to get you back on for a 10-minute to talk about doing the London Marathon. That's still to come. But it's an amazing story. Your attitude, your resilience is the word of the day now. And just the whole approach to everything that happened and that incredible story, and how you were determined to help others at the same time is absolutely amazing. So credit to you, mate. Really good to have you on here. Thank you so much for agreeing to do it. Obviously we're doing a bit of work together at the moment, so I'll be talking to you very soon again from a work point of view.
Yeah.
But it's great. I'm delighted to have met you recently, and it's such a pleasure to hear your overall story and to hear your whole attitude and approach. And I'm really grateful for you coming on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, Jim. It's been actually a pleasure reliving this again, man. Thanks a lot. I haven't spoken about this in a while, so it's good to reminisce.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, really good to have you on. Thanks for that.
All right, man. Thanks, and chat soon.
Catch you soon. Have a good new year. All the best.
You too, babe. Bye-bye.